Welcome back to NewsMakers. We are with Bruce Ansley, Antony Gough and Jim Tully. Well, last Friday, the City Council convened for an emergency meeting that has dramatically imposed some stringent earthquake strengthening standards on building owners. Now, it's the damaged buildings that will be the first cab off the rank with these new standards. When they are repaired, if they are repaired, they will have to be strengthened to 67% of the building code, double the council's initial position. But will this compliance cost consign many buildings to the scrap heap? Is this a legitimate concern, Antony?
It certainly is. There's a building in Manchester Street that at 1/3 code, it was going to require $320,000 to fix. Apparently at 2/3 code, it will cost $620,000 to fix. Replacement value is $500,000. It's a no-brainer. It will come down purely because of that legislation.
So will it be the insurance companies that basically call the shots here?
Yes, it will. The other thing that's going to happen is that why 67%? Why not 42 or why not 150% of code? Why have we picked 67? And I believe we should be taking a stock take of buildings in Christchurch that have had earthquake proof done to them and what code did they get to. For instance, all my ones along the terrace are 1/3 code. Yeah. They're all up and running, they're fine. And 1/3 code may be enough. I'm not suggesting new build shouldn't be at full code, but I am questioning whether 67%. And my insurance companies are telling me, if that's the case, then expect my earthquake insurance next year to double for Christchurch. Everyone's earthquake insurance will double automatically. And so that'll be the roll-on effect if this carries on.
The former Mayor Gary Moore wrote a very interesting op-ed in the press earlier this week, very much concurring with your concerns, I guess, Antony, about the haste of this decision and the implications. Do you think the council may have jumped the gun here, Jim?
Well, I think the issue of haste is a really important one. I think that it calls for measured decisions. It calls for, and that study of the 30%, I think, is a really great idea. I mean, I think it would be a very, very prudent thing to do. And my fear is the one that's been voiced, that we're going to face premiums that are going to escalate hugely now because of this. But I agree that there has been some rush, I think, and it's been good that voices have been raised about the need to really think seriously about heritage and to take a deep breath, I think was Gary's phrase in his column, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, very much. How important are those older buildings to our texture, our soul as a city? Bruce?
Well, I think they're very important. And what worries me about what Antony says is that we're going to have a lot of buildings pulled down. There doesn't seem to me, although I'm not a developer, but there doesn't seem to me to be a huge amount of pressure to redevelop in Christchurch. I think I heard Miles Warren on the radio a few days ago saying that we have double the retail area that per head of population that Auckland has. So are we going to have this sort of broken-toothed skyline? Are we going to have big gaps in between these buildings? And this piece of this council decision goes really to the heart of that, I think. I mean, it's in the nature of an emergency for people to make hasty decisions. Everybody's wired up, but there's no reason why a hasty decision can't be hastily unmade.
Well, I suppose there is an election looming and perhaps the next council may revisit it. I have heard the Mayor say, look, we have adopted the approach that they did in Gisborne following their earthquake a few years ago in terms of establishing the 67% level. Is that a useful guide to follow?
But in the Napier earthquake, the standards were a fraction of what they are today. We used to design for 0.2 G as the earthquake loading. We had a 1 G force of the one we had at Christchurch, and it didn't level the city. It's a huge step up from the Napier days, and every 5 years they up the code. So we've got a moving target at the moment, and I know it's only the 67 is on current stock that's damaged. My concern is that it's going to roll into everything else. So suddenly we're going to have a 15-year requirement of existing stock to be bought up. It won't be feasible, so the buildings will have to be emptied or bowled. Is that the intention? I think it's a wrong line to go down.
All right. Just a quick comment on this rather unseemly scrap that has erupted in the media over the mass removal of a family group from the Addington Welfare Centre. There were a wave of complaints about the behaviour of this 30-strong Martin family. They were essentially evicted by the police. Rahui Katane, the Māori Party MP, has accused the police of ethnic profiling and unfairly uprooting this family, causing them immense humiliation. There's a lot of allegations being made here, perhaps on both sides. What do you make of it? Bruce?
Well, I read that story with a good deal of misgiving. I mean, as I said a moment ago, that there are a lot of hasty decisions made in a situation like this. Perhaps that's one of them. We have to accept the police's version. I suppose we don't have to accept it, but we only have the police's version of what was taking place, that this family was making life pretty uncomfortable for other people in that home, in that centre. I also read that their houses were actually tenable, although they said they didn't know it at the time. They'd only just been made tenable again. We should at least have a look at some of these things that have gone on. If that is true, then that's a fairly awful thing to have happened.
There have been the most extraordinary claims published by the media, particularly on news websites and in chat rooms. Huge allegations being cast at this family, which I have found quite uneasy reading, in terms of a public domain. What do you make of it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the race card has been played, probably wrongly. I mean, if the family was being intimidating and difficult and causing that degree of strife, then regardless of who they were, surely they had to go in that sense. And I think it's unfortunate that, the stereotyping has entered this story, a member of the mongrel mob, ergo,
Sure.
It all makes sense kind of thing. I mean, I think the story has become quite a simplistic storyline, when in fact I'm sure there are many layers, and I think that's what Bruce was getting at.
That's right, there were women and children involved here too.
Yes, there were. What about Rahui Katane's incursion into this? Does it strike you as politicking?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes, I think trying to play the race card is totally ridiculous. I know some very, very nice Maori people. That is not a race issue here. It's a disturbance issue. And if the houses were habitable, what on earth were they doing freeloading? I don't care what their race is. They shouldn't have been there in my books. And we're told that the houses were habitable. They should go back, stop freeloading.
All right. We'll take a break. In a moment, we'll have a look at the earthquake aftermath through the prism of the local body election. It's perhaps been a seismic shift for Bob Parker, and Jim Anderton is trying to find some relevance now as we head into the home straight of the election campaign. We'll have a look at those issues. Also, David Garrett, that's coming up.